everything I can to prove to you that you made the right decision.
On the last day of campaigning before the New Hampshire primary, Nikki Haley dashed from one event to another. Tuesday could be her final chance to prevent Donald Trump from sealing the Republican nomination. In the final day of campaigning before the first primary of this election cycle, both Haley and Trump stuck to their strengths. They both embodied what is increasingly the lopsided nature of this race. Over the last 6 months, ever since he entered this race, the former president, Donald Trump, has methodically taken out one opponent after another. The latest being Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida, who at one point seemed like Trump's biggest challenger. But he bowed out over the weekend, grudgingly after a below-par performance in Iowa last week. He also belatedly endorsed Trump. But Nikki Haley is hoping that she can stop Trump in his tracks. And she's hoping that she can begin to do that in New Hampshire.
I voted for Donald Trump twice. I was proud to serve America in his administration. But rightly or wrongly, chaos follows him. You know I'm right. Chaos follows him. And we can't be a country in disarray and have a world on fire and go through 4 more years of chaos because we won't survive it.
Haley dashed off to about half a dozen events in New Hampshire, attended by small clutches of voters on the very last day of campaigning. Trump, on the other hand, presented a contrasting picture. He started off the day in New York for an optional court appearance. This was in a civil defamation trial. That appearance ended up being postponed. He had no other public appearances until the evening. And then he held a rally in Laconia in New Hampshire, surrounded by 3 former contestants for the Republican ticket. All 3 of them lost to Trump, and all 3 of them are now endorsing Trump. That's Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, tech billionaire Vivek Ramaswamy, and Governor Doug Burgum of North Dakota.
Got a lot of Democrats voting for her. You have a crazy election. Let's all get out and let's vote for somebody that we want to run against. They want to run against because she's so easy to beat. If you look at the polls, Biden beats her by a lot. We cannot have that.
Nikki Haley, on the other hand, received that could effectively end the race for Nikki Haley. She's hoping for a better show in New Hampshire because the next state is her home state of South Carolina. She's riding on the fact that if she were to put up a good show in New Hampshire, then she could keep her campaign alive until at least Super Tuesday, which is in the first week of March.
And what the people of New Hampshire should know is when we win the presidency in this country, I will do everything I can to prove to you that you made the right decision. But for now, I'll leave you with this. May the best woman win.
Ron DeSantis' departure from the race has given Haley the one-on-one showdown with Donald Trump that she has always wanted. But the Florida governor's grudging endorsement of Trump, a rival who had bullied him for months, that only seemed to add to an aura of inevitability around Trump being the eventual nominee. Haley pleaded with New Hampshire voters on Monday to change the primary's direction. Underscoring the one-on-one contest vis-a-vis Donald Trump, she said to voters in Franklin, New Hampshire, "Do we want more of the same, or do we want a new generational leader?" Trump, having all but declared that this primary was over at a rally on Sunday night in Rochester, New Hampshire, said that he would not ask Haley to exit the race if she did not win the state. "I do not ask people to drop out," said Trump. "They drop out of their own volition." But he was quick to add that perhaps she should. But not everyone is happy with the Trump effect on the Republican Party. The Republican Party has narrowed its base considerably because Donald Trump is an extremely divisive cult figure who basically does not attract large segments of the wider population. But he does energize the Republican base. He does attract a very fervent following. The party is becoming less and less the majority party, the party of governance that it used to be, and now is appealing more and more to a narrow party base. And that is having trouble winning elections in battleground swing states. Trump's beleaguered Republican detractors, the ones within the Republican Party who hate Trump, they argue that the Trumpian vision is one of chaos, of authoritarianism, and division. It is not a message or a vision of unity, and that is precisely why it is not good enough to win middle ground states. And that is an argument that's being put forth by Nikki Haley and her campaign, that Trump has lessened the appeal of the Republican Party to a much more narrower but ferocious base. And that base will not stand a chance against a much bigger rainbow coalition that the Democrats have put together from Obama's time. And her argument is also that despite Biden's unpopularity, that rainbow coalition will see the Democrats home in a general election. Now, whether or not that message, that argument, cuts ice with the voters of New Hampshire is an open question. But Haley and team are hoping that the most moderate Republicans and independents, particularly in a liberal state like New Hampshire, will buy into that argument. And she has powerful people backing that claim. Americans for Prosperity Action, the conservative group that's backed by the mega donors, the Koch brothers, Charles and David Koch, they are campaigning hard for Nikki Haley. They suggest that she is the most electable Republican in the field. Some polls have also shown Nikki Haley beating President Biden by a much wider margin than any of the other Republican contestants if a general election were to happen today. More immediately, she also has some appeal amongst New Hampshire's largest political constituency, which is independent voters. Republicans are hoping that Tuesday's vote count could break the record for primary turnout in New Hampshire. The current Republican primary record is of about 285,000 voters. That was set back in 2016 when Donald Trump won. Back then, he defeated a crowded GOP field. Him winning New Hampshire back in 2016 helped propel momentum into his campaign, and eventually he went on to clinch the Republican nomination. Chris Ager, who is the chairman of the New Hampshire Republican Party, has suggested that this year as many as 300,000 people could participate in the primary. Critically, this primary in New Hampshire is open to independent voters. That is a key voter bloc, which accounts for about 40% of the 900,000 voters in the state. And that is a bloc that Nikki Haley is hoping will back her in big numbers so that she can challenge the Trump juggernaut. A lot will get decided